Lady's recognized for 5 minutes.
I think just as the time was winding down, Mr. Kildee started to talk about economic development. And what I'd like to point to for Mr. Lukemeyer is CDBG funds were used as kind of a guarantee or collateral for Section 108 loan guarantee programs. And Section 108 loan programs were used for economic development. They help to revitalize old towns and create commercial development. And so I want to make sure that the point is made that this is not simply for housing. And I have been very pleased as I have watched economic development in many cities and towns based on the combination of use between CDBG and Section 108 loan guarantee programs. And I will yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yield?
Yes, I will yield.
Over here. Just to Mr. Kildee's comment that some of the reasons why the towns or the counties are financially have constraints, and that's why they look to the CBDG. It's not on the screen right now, but it would be if it was his time. The Federal Government has $18 trillion in constraints. Most states have balanced budgets. I don't know about yours.
Reclaiming my time.
And so that's why we have these concerns.
Reclaiming my time.
Sure.
I really want to talk about this issue. I don't want to go to, political talking points about the $18 trillion. We know, we see what you've been doing. You've been running it all day. We're talking about CDBG. We're talking about Section 108 loan guarantees. We're talking about housing. We're talking about trying to do for those that many of you have said all day that you want to be helpful to. CDBG has been terribly effective. It has been cut. It was the victim of sequestration, and all of your mayors all over the country, both in Republican areas and Democratic areas, beg us, do not stop CDBG. We need CDBG. Please expand CDBG. So with that, if I have time left, I'm going to yield my time to Mr. Kildee because he is one of the persons who have come to this Congress with the kind of background and experience working in local city, in his city, to talk about how you can be creative in the use of stimulus money, CDBG. He's got ideas about economic development. Mr. Kildee, I yield to you.
Thank you. I thank the ranking member for yielding, and I appreciate the discussion because I think it daylights a problem that I know members have heard me talk about in the past, and that is that the communities that we're talking about, in particular the communities that I would like to see the CDBG program targeted for, and this would be a change because I think there are legitimate concerns about whether the dollars are properly targeted to achieve their goals. If they were targeted, as I suggest, to those communities that have experienced enormous economic dislocation, they, I think, would achieve the kinds of results that we're looking for. The problem has been, as these dollars are increasingly depleted year in and year out, it is more difficult for communities who are facing difficult balance sheets themselves, largely because not just of their own particular challenges, and there was a reference at the outset of this markup to the city of Detroit, but there is a whole subset of American cities that are facing financial stress as a result of globalization, regionalization of wealth, transportation policy that, and housing policy and infrastructure policy that does not reward those who reinvest in the existing built environment, but rewards those who build on green fields and leave aging infrastructure behind. There's all sorts of problems in those communities. They will not be able to have a path forward without some help. And so my view on this is, yes, there are examples in this program, just like there are in any other program, where one could conflate the occasional problems with the entirety of the program itself. But I think it's a big mistake for us to forget as members that those celebrations that we attend are much more the norm, and we're all willing to participate in them. And I think we could have many more of them if the program were targeted in a way that is intended to achieve the goals that were originally devised back in the mid-1970s when this Congress and a Republican president approved this direction. So I would hope that we would consider this amendment. With that, I yield back to the Ranking Member the 4 seconds that she has.
I yield back to Balance Secretary.